Did the ACC get it right? The votes are tallied, the results are in, and the ACC Media preseason poll has been released. I'm here to talk about it. Brad Sinkoff here at All Clemson Tigers Football Show. I'm a deputy editor over at allclemsontigers.com, and you're going to want to please make sure you don't miss anything that's going on right now. Fall camp starts this week for the Clemson Tigers on Friday. Got a lot going on with realignment rumors, and of course, ACC football getting started here right around the corner. And nothing says the season is about to start than the ACC Media preseason poll. So give us a like. Please hit the subscribe button. Help build our YouTube channel. And don't miss anything we've got coming up here at All Clemson Tigers. In fact, we got a live show coming up later this month. You don't want to miss any of that as well. So hit that subscribe button and help us out. The preseason poll, I've got it for you in case you haven't seen it quite yet. Number one, Clemson. The Tigers picked to win the ACC. Florida State, number two. Clemson got almost 60% of the media vote from last week's ACC kickoff. And I think the media got it right. I think they made the right call here. And I had some trepidation going into last week. I thought maybe because of the hype surrounding Florida State, because of Jordan Travis, because of transfer Keon Thompson coming from Michigan State to play receiver with Johnny Wilson, because Jared Verse came back, because a lot of other key pieces came back. I thought maybe the media would build Florida State up and really hype them up. And to a certain degree, I think they did, and they have been hyped up a lot thus far in the offseason. But I thought going into ACC kickoff, you might see a lot of folks start to waver just to be different, just to give it maybe a new flavor, a new taste. Clemson's picked at this thing almost every year. Now, Clemson's won it, 7 of the last 8 years. So the Tigers have done pretty doggone well when it comes to meeting the media's expectations and winning the conference. But still, I just wondered if maybe folks were going to take the opportunity to vote Florida State this week. And that's not what happened. Surprisingly, it was the Tigers to be number one. A little bit surprisingly. I say a little bit because as the week went on, I felt like I was having conversations with multimedia members who were from all over the country, both regionally, but also a lot of national writers, and it just and radio guys, and it just felt like the vibe was leaning more toward Clemson as the week ended. Now, maybe that has something to do with Clemson going on Thursday, the final day. But by the time we got to the end of the thing, I thought, yeah, Clemson will probably end up getting most of the votes. Now, I voted for Clemson, full disclosure. In my poll, I had the Tigers number one. I also had Florida State right behind them at number two. And I really think it's the right call to vote Clemson. Florida State has not won this league in a long time. They've lost 7 consecutive games to the Clemson Tigers. They're not beaten them since 2014. And you factor in, the Mike Norvell has only beaten one ranked team since he's been at Florida State, their head coach, which, I mean, that's one of those things you have to read into it carefully. But I do think it matters a little bit. I think it matters when you're trying to build trust in who you want to pick in these polls. Do these polls make any difference in the outcome of the regular season? Of course not. They're fun. They're fodder. This is what we do this time of the year is talking season. We got to enjoy this as much as we can. But I was, just curious as to how people viewed Florida State. And I just don't think enough people, definitely not over 60%, were willing to sort of take that plunge, not over 40%, 41%, willing to take that plunge and pick the Seminoles to win the conference. And I think it was the right call. So I think the media did get that right. Did they get everything right? No. I'm seeing some teams on there. I'm a little surprised where they are. For instance, Louisville at number 8. Man, I don't know. Jeff Brom, a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm. The prodigal son returns home to Louisville, leaves Purdue. Finally, after all these years, they get him. There's a lot of energy around that program. And I just got a sneaky feeling that that's going to help carry this team to a lot of wins. Now, they also get the benefit of scheduling. They do not play Florida State. They do not play Clemson. The 2 top teams, they miss them. So I think Louisville can run up and rack up a pretty good conference record because of that. And so I think 8's way too low on Louisville. A little surprised by NC State, to be honest with you, number 4, and that might have been a lot of North Carolina media. That might have been, faith in Dave Doran, which to a certain degree, I think Dave deserves a little bit of faith and credit for what he's done. But they underachieved a little bit last year. Defense was good, not amazing, but good. Didn't they had quarterback injuries? Didn't really work out for them offensively. So maybe they're expecting media members thinking maybe a big bounce back for NC State. And they do bring in Brennan Armstrong and Robert and Nye, who were together at Virginia when Armstrong threw for 4,000 yards. So maybe rekindling that. I don't know that Doran's the kind of guy who's going to let a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. And I'm not sure that's even a good thing for NC State. But regardless, the media picks him fourth. I am a little bit lower than that. Wasn't surprised to see North Carolina number 3. I think the Tar Heels are kind of a different tier. They're not in the tier of Florida State and Clemson. I think they're just a shade below that, right where they're at, number 3. But I think they're above NC State. I think they're above Louisville, Duke, Pitt, Miami. So I think they were adequately ranked in the preseason poll. It's where I had them. I guess maybe if you want to have a little bit of beef with Miami in the top 5, they're coming off a disastrous season last year, 5-7. I think they at least flip that to 7-5. I think they could win 5 games within the conference and get to 5-3. That's going to put them, I think, in a mix of a bunch of teams. I think Pitt can go 5-3. Louisville, I mentioned. I think the ceiling could even be 6-2 for Louisville, maybe even 7-1. And then there's Wake Forest. What do you do with them? Duke. Can they repeat what they did last year? There's no coastal to win anymore. No divisions. So I kind of get that you could just jumble those teams up, put them wherever you want. I'm not going to argue with those. The bottom, pretty self-explanatory. I was a little surprised Boston College 13th. I was actually a couple spots higher on BC and a couple spots higher on Georgia Tech. I think both those teams are more competitive this year. A lot of injuries for BC last year. I expect a better season. I don't know if they can get up into that middle group, that tier of just the kind of the randomos that I was talking about earlier. Just a whole bunch of about 6 teams in there that could go 5-3 or 4-4. I'm not sure Georgia Tech and BC quite get into that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did, and that's why I sort of ranked them a little bit higher in my personal ACC poll that I voted on last week at the media day. So that's where things sit right now with the way the conference is laid out. Virginia, as much as I hate to say it, needs to be last. Tony Elliott, as tragic as last season was, there's just not a lot of good players on the team. Not a lot of good football that was played a year ago to give you a belief in them. Virginia Tech's a little higher on this list than maybe I would have had them, but I understand maybe, liking that team and thinking that, a second-year bump for Brent Pry, even though their offense was absolutely dreadful. They did bring in Drones, who I think could be a transfer quarterback, could be a big lift for them if Grant Wells can't get it done. And honestly, I don't know there's a whole lot of reason to have a ton of faith in Grant Wells. So Virginia Tech, somewhere down there near the bottom. Syracuse's team I'm just really low on this year. I have a bad feeling for Dino Babers and company. I just do not buy that they can get by with 2 really good offensive players. And I'm not even trying to say Garrett Schrader's a really good offensive player. I think he's pretty good. I think he has his moments when he can be really good. But I don't know if I trust that he's going to show up really well for 7-8 games. I love Oronde Gadsden. I think he's one of the best playmakers in this league. But that's about all they've got. And they are very thin on offensive line. They are not great on the defensive front. They lost a lot of guys there. And then they had some transfers in the secondary, starting transfers in the secondary. So they're going to be plugging a lot of new guys in there at Syracuse. I'm not sure it's going to work out for them, so I'm a little lower on the Orange this year. But I'm high on the Clemson Tigers. I think they're going to be number 1 in the ACC this year. Because of no divisions, Florida State, Clemson could play twice. Could foresee that for sure. I do think the game in Death Valley on September 23rd is very critical because I don't think you want to play the I have to win game. And, who knows what happens with Florida State and LSU in the opener. If you're FSU and you lose 2 games before you get out of the month of September. Are you going to be motivated the rest of the season? So I think there's a lot of pressure on the Seminoles. And then for Clemson, you want to win that game. That way you get a mulligan somewhere else. Maybe there's another game that catches Clemson off guard. Maybe there's an opponent. Maybe there's like a trip to NC State or Miami or something that sort of catches Clemson at the right time. Who knows? I mean, it's college football. It's not easy to go undefeated. And I don't think the Tigers necessarily go undefeated with this schedule, but I do think they win the ACC with Garrett Riley running the offense. I think it's such a huge boost with the all the defensive line guys that came back, the linebackers with Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think pretty much at every level you can say Clemson's going to be better this year, or at least the same. At linebacker, they'll at least be the same. Now, there's some depth issues. Those guys got to stay healthy. But I think based on everything that's coming back, is there a position that's going to be worse? I mean, obviously, pass rush is an issue. The Clemson Tigers don't have, that first rounder coming off the edge. They're going to create pressure and quarterback hurries and sacks maybe in different ways than just pure edge rushers. So we'll see if it's that actual weakness when they take on Duke coming up on Labor Day night up in Durham. But again, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and go follow us everywhere we are on social medias at All Clemson, allclemsontigers.com. A lot going on right now. Fall camp previews coming up this week. Stay tuned for that. And we certainly appreciate you being a part of All Clemson Tigers. And we want you to continue to do that by hitting that subscribe button on the All Clemson YouTube channel. Have a great Monday. It's Tuesday. Have a great Tuesday. I'll talk to you next time.